this year, we're going to dig deep and dig together on inclusive education. We're going to start driving every conversation we have, every policy we write, and every resource we commit to with one question. How are the children doing? We have groups of kids who aren't doing well, and those communities are saying our kids aren't doing well. And we said, but we're doing this and this and this and this. And we are. We're working hard. And they said, yeah, but our kids aren't doing well. And we said, yeah, but we're doing this and this and that, right? If we can help action and change the question from what we're doing to what difference are we making in the doing, stop doing the stuff that's not making a difference and double down on the stuff that is, right? That's what we're going to be doing this year. We know our African Nova Scotian kids aren't doing as well as they ought to be. Our Mi'kmaq learners are not doing as well as they ought to be. Our kids struggling in families who are struggling every day with poverty are not doing as well as they ought to be. There are other subclusters of kids. So we need to respond differently.
Asking the REDs at the system level to do equity this way. If we do literacy, numeracy, think about your plans. Literacy, numeracy, well-being, equity this way. Because equity has to be incorporated into the literacy, into the numeracy, and into the well-being. Because none of us got here to reach 70% of our kids. But that's what we're doing. And we're working really, really hard. So this can't be about working harder, and this can't be about caring more. Because I don't believe that educators could care more about those kids than they care now. And I don't believe that educators could work harder than they're working now. So it's about different, right? It's about different. It's about time to really challenge ourselves. So for years, if you read the literature and if you listen to people who come in and talk to us, for years, people have been saying things like, all children can learn. And yet, we have evidence that only 70% are learning well, right? So how do we close the gap between our beliefs and our impacts?
Finally, every kid in this province deserves to be part of a classroom with classroom teachers. Every classroom teacher in this province cannot be expected to meet the needs of every kid in front of them. So that's a collective responsibility to helping that happen.
How safe, for lack of a better word, is it for a teacher to come and say, I got this group of 6 kids, I'm not moving. I've tried and they're still not moving. I need help. I don't know how to solve this problem of practice. We need to make it okay to say that, and then we need to respond to help them answer that question. Our schools are built, and if you look at them, if you took the roof off and you look down, they look like egg cartons. Because they look like egg cartons doesn't mean we need to practice like they are egg cartons. And the phrase I like to use about this is, independent practicing is inconsistent with professionalism. Gone are the days, right? This province is engaged in a rigorous conversation over the last few years around complex classrooms. Complex classrooms cannot be solved by a lone practitioner, right? So if we're going to reach all kids, we can't expect teachers to individually do that by themselves with the kids in front of them. I'm going to issue to the system an invitation. We put $500,000 in the PD line of this year's inclusion money that we haven't given out yet. Because I'm going to ask schools to say, who's not there yet? How are the children doing and how do you know? And what would you like to do differently this year? And what help do you need? Do you want PD? Do you want a little bit of release time? What do you want, right, to do that? I'm going to invite principals to do that with their staffs. I'm going to caution principals that this needs to be a collective volunteer, not a voluntold activity, right? It needs to be collaborative. And then come in, and our function will be to seed as many schools as we possibly can in the work that they undertake this year. And then we're also going to say, what's the problem of practice that they said they're working on? And then we're going to say, hey, here's 10 schools who are working on this problem of practice for these kids. Let's introduce them to each other. So we're going to network schools so that people aren't working even by themselves under their roof. right? Great systems network. Anything that's moved kids is a product of ongoing professional learning that's networked. So this is not new. We've endeavored to be inclusive and to be equitable. We haven't achieved it. This is about now a deliberate and intentional focus. We took all year long to build this policy. And we did that because we had a lot of pressure from the system. Where's the policy? Where's the policy? Where's the policy? And I spoke with the commissioners, the 3 commissioners for Students First, and they said, Kathy, get this right. Don't get this fast. And on this policy, which is not normal practice for us, I'm appending a list of everybody we talked to, because we talked a lot, right? The other thing that I learned over this journey this year is when you talk about the language we use about inclusion, the practices we want about inclusion, there is very little unanimity. And the first section of this policy says these are our beliefs. In Nova Scotia, this is what we believe about inclusive education. Inclusion is about community. It's about connectedness. It is about learning, but it's not just about learning, right? So we need to think about that. We need to think about high expectations. What's next for that kid? And we're doing it. So we're bringing the policy and the practice, because great systems find a sweet spot between top down and bottom up. And when you reach that sweet spot in a system becomes way more effective. So that's how we're going to join with the sector to accomplish this on behalf of our kids. And there's an urgency to this, right? Black Report was 25 years ago. The data on those kids has not moved. They shouldn't have to wait any longer, right? Same thing for the Mi'kmaq community and the reports we have for them, the newcomers, kids living in poverty. There are clusters of kids who are sitting in that 30% and have been for a long time, and they can't wait anymore.
We will be releasing a website with resources to help.
MTSS is not going to be a manual. Step 1, step 2, step 3. It's going to be a complement to professional judgment rooted in learning on behalf of our kids. So this is a great beginning. And I say beginning, not because this stuff isn't out there. The stuff that's out there that's supporting inclusive education is the best kept secrets in Nova Scotia. Part of our job is to uncover them and share them, right? So we're going to build on what we know. We're going to uncover new practices. We're going to support people who need to learn themselves forward differently on behalf of kids. And we're going to do it together. It's totally doable. Totally doable. That's the hopeful part of this. We can do this, and I think Nova Scotia is well poised to achieve equity and inclusivity in our education system.
This is the beginning of a year that we will be the first jurisdiction that other jurisdictions talk about when they talk about inclusivity. I know it's there. I know we're there.
There's a moral imperative to this work because all of us got into education to reach every kid. All means all, and we need to be deliberately focused on that now. So thank you. And thank you for this year ahead of time.